ahead and record the video, then please do. Well, now I see the word recording anyway, so that's okay for that.
Okay, so hello everybody, good evening, and welcome to this workshop on Upskilling for the Future of Communications, presented by AfricaCommunicationWeek, ACW, and the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, CIPR. My name is Eniola Harrison, and I'm a co-founder of AfricaCommunicationWeek. I'm also a communications consultant working with corporate and institutional clients. And it's really a pleasure to have so many of you all here today. So I'm just going to share a little bit of background about ACW, AfricaCommunicationWeek. We're a network of Africa-focused communication professionals passionate about the continent's transformation. And each year, AfricaCommunicationWeek hosts a series of events around Africa Day to encourage Africa-focused comms professionals around the world connect, engage, and impact the continent's transformation through strategic comms. Managing reputation and changing perceptions about the continent is a really important part of this transformation. And we strongly believe that comms professionals such as ourselves have the tools and resources to impact the continent's trajectory through our work, through the work that we do. And that's part of the reason why we're here today. So to think and to plan for how to equip ourselves with the resources and tools we need for the future. Because as we know, the landscape is changing and this change is driven by technology. So our industry is one of the most dynamic ones, and coupled with the massive impact that the pandemic is having on the future of work in general, this is really an opportune moment, I think, for us to start thinking about professional development and the skills and areas of expertise we need to develop to stay relevant for the future. And now I'm going to pass on to my colleague, Annie, who is going to talk and share a little bit about some thoughts on skills for the future.
Hello, everyone. My name is Annie Mutamba. I'm the co-founder of AfricaCommunicationWeek and the owner of a public affairs consulting firm specializing in government relations between Africa and Europe and based in Brussels. As Eniola just said, AfricaCommunicationWeek was built on the belief that there's a very obvious link between strategic communication and socio-economic development, an obvious link that no one talks about, and that communication professionals can also play a huge role in Africa's economic transformation. And when I say communication professionals, I mean those in Africa, but also those outside the continent, because there are so many voices and organizations out there that have a massive and sometimes negative impact on how Africa and Africans are perceived. And I'm sure I don't need to give you examples. Well, when we launched AfricaCommunicationWeek in 2017, our mission was clear. The communication professions can play a role in Africa's development, but when empowered with the right skills, the right networks, and professional development opportunities. And it actually reflects the main feedback we got when we launched the first edition back 3 years ago. So hosting this workshop is just natural for us, and we're very glad to join forces with CIPR because the potential is huge. But before we hand over to our CIPR colleagues here, this workshop is really about upskilling. So we thought it would be helpful to take a look at some of the skills that will be relevant and in high demand in the future. So we'd like to present you with a top 10. We call them the power skills. And Yola, I don't know if you can show the slide now, where we present them in no particular order. Do you see the slide? Because I don't.
Yes.
Yes? Oh, okay, good. The first one is cross-cultural communication. For Africa-focused communication professionals, for those of us who work across different countries and regions, cross-cultural communication is the absolute must. You could be working at an agency, in a company, an institution, the government level, an NGO, an international organization. It is crucial to understand and be able to communicate and well, yes, to translate the practical realities at the local level, because, and we all know this, but there's no such thing as communicating Africa as a single market. And I'm not even talking about the Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone language divide, which means we're sometimes losing out actually on opportunities. All eyes today are on Africa, so now is the time to step up. The second skill, well, second area, reputation management. Well, whether you want to build it, manage it, restore it, reputation is an organization's most valuable asset. It's a, so to speak, license to operate. We all remember the Ethiopian airline crash in March 2019, and I know it feels like ages ago now, but it really put Boeing's reputation on the line. On the other hand, Ethiopian Airlines, if you remember, would be in deep trouble right now if it wasn't for solid reputation and issue management. And that directly impacts its bottom line. So reputation is definitely something we need to master. Same as ethics. As a profession, there are so many lessons we can draw from the current health crisis. And one of them is our potential to affect lives and influence economies. This is power, and it comes with a lot of responsibilities. Honesty, trust, accuracy, diversity, free speech, and so on. Those ethical standards should be reflected in everything we do and say. This is another area where we as Africa-focused communication professionals collectively need to succeed. Risk and crisis communication, I'm sure I don't need to insist on that one. The importance of this discipline has been widely acknowledged and praised, especially over the last month. And it's here to stay. It's a strategic field for any organization in the world, and definitely in all our countries across the African continent. And then public affairs, and that's my last point before I hand over back to you, Eniola. As a public affairs consultant myself, I feel compelled to talk about it. Depending on how you see it, narrowly or broadly, public affairs is mostly a combination of government relations, public policy, issue management, and strategic communication. Helping your organization communicate effectively with government is going to become increasingly important in the future. Whether you want to influence, to position your organization as a solution provider, to monitor what comes next, et cetera, and that is valid for any public policy at the local, national, regional, or international level. Now, for the rest of the list, I'm handing over to you, Eniola. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. So thanks, Annie. So the next item on the list is planning and budget management. And I mean, I think, we all know as PR and communication professionals that strategic planning, in PR is what really sets the profession apart, as a critical component of building a business and managing reputation. So this is definitely, I think that investing a lot of time and resources in upskilling, in planning and resource management is absolutely crucial for the future. One of my favorite, I would say, areas to talk about is actually digital communication. And I think that if there's one thing that the pandemic has brought to the fore, it's the need for all PR professionals to be skilled in digital communication and to understand the creative, technical, and strategic components of online communication as well. So we're all going to need to become digitally inclined professionals, understanding existing and emerging social media platforms, data analytics, visual communication, and content creation. How these fit together, how paid and organic social media works with paid search, content marketing, analytics, all of these elements are absolutely crucial for the future of communication and definitely an area to focus on. And this naturally leads me to data-driven communication, which is crucial. How prepared are we with data to make decisions? As PR professionals, it's our job to understand what drives our clients' businesses and to make recommendations that are best for them. And this is best done using data and insights. And so this means that we need to become really well-versed in analytics, as well as apply a level of scientific rigor to our PR planning as well. Another point, on this is that we are experiencing a lot of, I would say, data shock. So there's an overload of data these days with hundreds of thousands of stories, press releases, flooding the ecosystem. And we really need data and insights to help us rise above the noise, to help us to get our messages across. And so, making informed decisions based on this data and research will really help us to unearth these new insights and story hooks that will transform a good story into a really great one. Next is AI and the potential of AI. And, the CIPR has just released a new ethics guide for PR professional. I think we'll talk about this later, but honestly, CIPR has some really amazing resources, and AI in PR have done really, really good work on this. So I really recommend you to check out their resources in this area. But we really need, as PR professionals, to understand the basics of AI. So, machine learning, neural networks, how algorithms work, and also how AI is actually impacting the work that we do. One of the studies that was done by CIPR shows that, quite a significant amount of the work that PR professionals do is being and will be replaced by AI tools in 5 years. So this is really something to think about. It's also impacting, for example, it's changing news and journalism, right? And this will affect media relations practice. So the birth of AI-powered content generation in the newsroom will change how we pitch and how we do our jobs. And finally, I think is the business of media. So, we will need to understand how media is evolving, how media is changing, and how media actually works. What is the bottom line? Who are the interests? What drives content? This is really, really interesting for us to be able to understand how to position our messages, to get our messages out there, and to really understand what's driving the media revolution in the future. So just before we move on, we have a quick poll just to run for everybody. And I'm just going to launch the poll now. And the first question is really, do you follow a structured development plan? Is this something that you do? And then out of these 10 power skills or areas of expertise, which one do you need to spend the most time developing? So just give you about a minute. Okay. So I'm just going to stop the poll now. I think we have, oh, people are still voting. All right. So it's interesting to see where it's kind of an even split, it seems, in how many people are following a structured development plan, and interesting to see that most people need to upskill in the area of digital communication and the potential of AI. But to sum it all up, the future of comms is actually multi-skilled. I have a colleague who once told me that we need to multi-skill or die as communication professionals. But a commitment to continuous professional development is a must, and this is one of the reasons I think CIPR is so important. And here to give us an overview and introduction to CIPR is CIPR International Chair, Andres Stanislav. So Andres, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for joining this webinar. My name is András Stanislav, and I'm the acting chair of the CIPR International group, which is among the biggest group, the largest group within the CIPR. We have around 1,000 members. I think we have a slide with exact figures in the slideshow. But as far as I remember, we have 979 according to the latest stats. Around 35–40% of them are based outside the UK. So it basically, in terms of the membership, we have two The one which is still a majority are the members who are working within the United Kingdom, but working in international roles. So they're particularly interested in cross-cultural communication, digital communication, and all like social media, global communications. But also we have a nice amount of members who are based outside the UK. I'm actually based in Hungary, so it's not that far from the United Kingdom. But we have members from South Africa, but even from New Zealand and Australia, which is quite far from the United Kingdom. So the needs of those members are slightly different because they are not always working at international roles, but they want to learn the experience and the best practices of what is basically a general practice in the UK or in the US market. So we have, as a group, we have these roles of serving both the members who are based in the UK, but the members who are based outside the UK. What we as a group usually do for the UK members, again, before COVID and before the lockdowns, we did lots of events, live events, mainly in London. Mostly networkings, but also like panel discussions and some skills learning as well. And also we did a webinar series, which is basically available for everyone, especially nowadays, since it's digital and it's available through our website channel. But what we did for the non-UK members for ages, we're basically lobbying for the CIPR to get as many sources as possible to the digital scene. So basically the Influence magazine, which was a printed magazine of the CIPR, it went digital, so now it's available for all members all over the world. Now, since COVID and since the lockdown, the Chartership assessment is available online. So I'm quite proud that approximately 8.6% of our membership is already chartered, which is a huge achievement because all around the world there are approximately 350 chartered practitioners, which is basically the highest qualification and the highest recognition of our profession. And that chartership is recognized by the CIPR. And also, it's the latest news, but Mandy, who is the president-elect of the CIPR, of the overall CIPR, might be able to tell a bit more details about the training sessions, because most of the trainings were offline and available in UK cities, but now most of them and more are getting available online. So people who are based outside the UK are available to access that. In terms of the channels, what we use, you can reach us via our LinkedIn channel. We have a Twitter channel. We have a Facebook channel and a LinkedIn group as well. And also we have a website, which is CIPRinternational.com. And we have a blog site where we post lots of blog posts from mainly overseas members. And what else do we have? And we have a video channel as well, where all the podcasts and the videos, the Doing PR webinar series are available. So that's in a nutshell, that's what CIPR International is about. And at a later stage, I'm very happy to answer all your specific questions regarding how the CIPR International works and what is the company doing, or how can we at your service in a way. So thanks again for this interaction.
Thanks so much, Andras. And now we're going to hear from Darbuni.
Hi, Aniola. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, we can, yes.
Hi. So I'm just going to take a few minutes just to talk about, why African PR practitioners should actually join the CIPR. I won't go so in depth with my background. I still have an opportunity to speak a little bit about that later on in our conversation today. But I'll just like to say that I'm Nigerian. My full name is Darbuni Mikori. I'm from Nigeria, West Africa, based in Nigeria, and I'm also probably a CIP member. I've been a member since 2007 and recently became a chartered PR practitioner, which I hold very proudly. and which is one of the reasons why I'm speaking to you today on this panel. In terms of why CIPR, there's so many reasons, but you know, as a PR practitioner, we manage relationships, we manage narratives between not just people, but also organizations and also the community. And part of our role and our job is to be positive influencers and also motivators, not just to boards and not just to our clients, but also directly to our society and our community as well. And as Africans, telling stories is really a foundation in which we bring, you know, we've grown up in, and not just for Africans, but also for every representation we have here today. We can't let anyone else tell our stories. We're the best people that can tell our stories because we live it, we breathe it, we understand it, and it's in our blood. And one of the reasons why it's very important for us as Africans to be a part of CIPR is because we need a very credible background and a very credible platform, and to be able to tell our stories, to be able to craft those positive narratives which aren't always out there in the media space or externally, but also to be able to have a space on the table where we can actually contribute to that conversation. And the CIPR for me has been one of those platforms in that, with the upskilling, which Annie and Eliola have already spoken to so eloquently with the 10 steps they've given us already. That's all just a little part of what that CIPR contributes to you as a professional. So you have an opportunity to have access to so many resources that support your upskilling. You're also in a community of professionals where you can build on best practices, share your failures, and also just have conversations within professionals who are working under specific codes of conduct and ethics, which we're all signed on to as professionals. And to be able to come through that with a credible voice gives the credibility, and also allows the public all over the world to believe our stories, to understand that we're coming from a positive place. And I think that that's one of the first things as a PR professional that you want to be seen as: a credible voice, an authentic voice. And that is what CIPR can support you in doing. Another thing, of course, as well, is our contribution to the thing, albeit some faster than others. But as Africans, we do know that there is a dearth in that area for all sorts of industries. And being able to come forth as a PR professional and to demonstrate that being a PR professional communicator isn't what many people think it is in the digital age, where it's just a low barrier of entry and anybody that has a social media platform who's an influencer can hop into, and suddenly they're this fantastic communicator. But to be able to demonstrate that there's a difference between someone doing that and being able to go through the skills you need as CIPR, you know, would build our profession, and of course automatically create jobs, support the economy, and also create the industry that we need to thrive in Africa. And finally, before I switch over, I'll also say that being a CIP professional makes you relevant, and specifically working under ethical code. As we probably heard before, there's strength in numbers. And when you have numbers and a large group of people saying the same things, working within the same kind of code, you would find that there would be a strength in making those positive impacts in the society, which of course will ultimately support Africa in so many ways. And so I'll just stop there because I know our conversation is going, but I hope that that has touched a few key points to my fellow brothers and sisters on the call. And of course, all those who are not Africans, just to be inspired to be a part of this movement that has been here for decades and will continue to be here, hopefully, to support us professionally.
Thanks, Darbuni. And so next we're going to hear from CIPR President-elect Mandy Pierce.
Hello, I'm really pleased to be here today, and lovely to meet so many of you. I'm the CIPR President-elect, so that means I'm the CIPR President next year, which is a huge honour. I'm a public sector communicator by background, but I'm also a consultant and a trainer. So as Andras says, I have a little bit of insight into some of CIPR's training offer as well. I was just delighted to hear everything Darbuni and our previous speakers have said, because the challenges we all face to differentiate ourselves from anyone who just thinks they can communicate are just the same the world over. So, you know, it is just as much of a struggle for us as in the UK as you guys out here. So we are united in that. And I think that point about professional differentiation, showing the value we add, is so important. I was absolutely passionate when I decided to stand to be president of the CIPR, that we needed to modernize and we needed to make our resources available online so that we had more content, more training courses and chartership opportunities online. And you know, there have been many difficult things that have come about due to COVID, but the one positive one has been, it has given us the impetus to move much, perhaps more quickly than we were intending to, so that most of our offer as CIPR is now a digital online offer. And that is just so much better for our colleagues all around the world, you know, whether that's in Asia, whether it's Africa, Latin America, it just makes so much more accessible. So I'm delighted that, you know, as Andras was saying, that we now have so many charter professionals amongst our international colleagues, and well done, Darbuni, absolutely superb. And it's not easy, the chartership. So I've gone through it myself only a couple of years ago, so I know exactly how scary it is at whatever level you are and how experienced you are. It's a scary thing to do. One of the things we have done, as well as getting our chartership online, is we've put a lot more resources online available as part of COVID. So we've put a lot of specific webinar content around crisis and internal communications online. We've also just launched an employability hub, because we know how important it is for anyone who is potentially looking at changing career at this point. We are in a world of digital interviews, and for people of my age, that is a very scary thought. You're used to, you know, seeing people face to face. So the challenge of putting yourself across and getting your message across digitally is there for all of us. We've moved a lot of our training online. So for those of us who train, like myself, that was quite a rapid transition, but it's been great fun, because we've had to master the technology as well as delivering our content, but it's meant we can meet so many more people. So some of the courses I run, I do some of the social and digital courses, and that's been lovely to meet colleagues from all over the UK and our international colleagues joining those courses. And it's been really fun. We've been able to share our range of experiences. So that's been brilliant. Graham, I know, is going to talk a bit more about CPD, but I would just wanted to say, absolutely committed to CPD. You know, no matter where you are in your career, you do need to continue to learn. I'm so conscious that I started my career in an era of fax machines and no internet. So, you know, I'm very aware that we have to continue to learn all the time. You have to keep refreshing those skills, learn new things, throw yourself into spaces where perhaps you don't naturally feel comfortable, and learn and give things a go and try things out. And I know Kerry's somewhere on the call here. And, you know, I'm still learning a lot about AI and PR, and, you know, so I'm continually reading up. So for all of us, you know, there is that push to keep developing our skills to be relevant in a modern industry. And I loved the top 10 skills we were looking at earlier. I thought that was absolutely spot on. Definitely the sort of things we should be looking at. So I'm going to hand over to Graham. He's going to talk you through a bit more about the CPD ladder and chartership, I think.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Mandy, for that. Hello, everyone. I'm Graham Kench. So I'm Membership and CPD Manager for CIPR. What that means really is just making sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible for members, doing their CPD, joining, renewing their membership, all of those things. So just to let you know a little bit about, there's two main reasons why people join the CIPR. We do surveys on this quite regularly. And the first one is for professional development purposes. So all of the resources available through the CPD platform and on our website in terms of podcasts, webinars, skills guides, plus all of our training courses that are now available digitally, address that primary need of our members to have professional development all the time. And the second one is networking. So the opportunity to broaden the professional network beyond just those people that you know or that you work with all the time, and branch out a bit. So those are the two sort of practical ways that we enable our members to develop themselves professionally and to broaden their professional network. If I just take you through the online chartership assessment process, Darbuni is going to come on in a minute and let you know about her experience from the assessment. But essentially, we're the only chartered professional body worldwide for PR and communications. So we're the only organisation that's allowed to award chartered status individually to our members, which is highly prized and recognised. And it demonstrates a commitment to continuously keeping your skills and knowledge up to date at all times. And of course, that's really valued by employers and society at large. So if I could have the next slide, please. Yep, so a bit more about the CPD or continuing professional development side of things. So we've got the industry's leading CPD platform. So it's an online digital platform that's available when you log in as a member of the CIPR. We've refreshed it a little bit, given it a bit of a facelift for this year to make it a bit more user-friendly. It's now linked to our central database so we can see which training courses you've been on with us and make sure you don't have to double enter information every time. There's over 1,800 learning resources on there. And as I said before, lots of webinars, podcasts, skills guides, and it's all about you being able to log and track the development activity that you're doing. So it's a recording system as well as a gateway to all of that information. So every time you look at a piece of information, use a resource, you can enter a reflective statement to talk about what you've gained from that piece of knowledge and how your practice will change as a result. And that will log against your personal learning cloud towards your allocated points for that year. So if we could have the next slide. So we've introduced, as Mandy alluded to earlier, because of coronavirus, we've been doing even more than usual for our members. And we've laid on some on-demand courses, which have been very kindly provided by CIPR's expert trainers to help members through this time. So there's 10 plus what we call CIPR Learn webinars, covering everything really from managing teams during lockdown, change communication, internal communications and how that will change if you're managing people remotely. So there's absolutely loads of resources available, even more than usual, on our website as a member. And all of that's really timely for the situation that we're in now. The next slide. So practically speaking, how does CPD work with the CIPR? So as a member, you gain access to CPD. It comes as part of the membership package. The CPD cycle runs from the beginning of March every year to the end of February, last day of February. And each member who's participating is asked to collect 60 points each year. To give you a rough indication, one webinar or skills guide is typically worth 5 points. So that's kind of the magnitude of the points value and how quickly those can add up. Every member needs to collect at least 5 points from an ethics topic, and that's because ethics is a compulsory subject, because we're a chartered professional body and the importance of it. And most activities, in fact, will give you 5 points. So we're talking about roughly 12 activities per cycle if they're all very short, kind of looking at a webinar, listening to a podcast sort of thing. It's worth mentioning some activities give you more, and in some cases far more than 5 points, depending on what the activity is. So if you're studying for a qualification, for example, that's a very hefty amount of work and a big commitment. So we recognise that with a higher points value that's allocated. Up to 60 in some cases are allocated for qualifications. And on to the next slide. Yeah, and so we've got here's a very fairly easy to understand image to show you the process for getting chartered and holding on to your chartered status once you've got it. So there's three components really. The first one is about commitment to ongoing CPD. So if you're looking to become chartered, you just need to demonstrate that you've been doing CPD in some shape or form for at least the past 3 years. That may be with the CIPR or it could be elsewhere. You need to be a member of the CIPR at full member grade at the time you sit your chartered assessment, and you need to remain at that grade if you want to hold on to your chartered status. And the third component is you need to pass the chartered assessment, which is a practical, hands-on, full-day chartered assessment, which is now available virtually for the first time, and that's working really well. And so to tell you a little bit about how the virtual chartered assessment works, I'm going to hand over now to Darbuni, who can perhaps give us some personal insights into how that worked for her.
Yeah, so hi, I'm back again, Darbuni again. Basically, I'm just going to take you through a very short story, which is my career journey. It won't be too long. And I've also built what I call the 10 C's to getting chartered. So I guess Annie and Enola were in the spirit with the number 10. And I'm just hoping that it'll really, give us some, and be chartered as well. And so I had a very vast career that covers, various professions. I'm a trained graphic relations practitioner as well. And I've been working professionally for over 20 years. And one thing that has remained constant over the 20 years of my career is the word transition. I've always been in a state of transition. And one thing that always shows up just before I move on to the next level in my transition over the 20 years has been a comfort zone. I had to identify that I was in some kind of comfort zone, and I had to realize that even though I was comfortable in that space, for various reasons, I may have been good, I may have been great, but I had to get better so I could move to the next level. And so to get better for me, the first thing I had to do was to humble myself, forget all my past laurels and all my past successes. And really hard, I think, for all of us is also to forget my failures as well. And humbling myself was really important to really develop that learner's mindset, to understand that there's something better, there's something I need to improve on myself, and really being open to change and being curious about that change. And also, being courageous enough to take the kind of risks and also, make the kind of difficult choices that we have to make, as we make those sort of changes in our lives. For me, I'm a mom as well as a professional. And so some of those choices go far beyond just individual success or individual progress, but also things that have to do with a collective that is outside of me. And so that's where the issue of courage and the issue of taking risks was really important, because you're actually putting other people's lives, on the line as you develop as well. And so in 2005, 2006, I met Dr. Ismail Ibrahim, and he introduced me to the then International Institute of Public Relations, which is now the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. And soon after that, I enrolled to do the CIPR diploma, the postgraduate diploma. And for me, that was a shift from, I was then in the hospitality industry as a graphic designer, doing a little bit of client relations, but I really wanted to go into core PR. So for me, that was the major step, taking the diploma. And so even a lot of things in life was happening. Fourth cycle of the CPD, which is the Continuous Development Program. And I don't regret any minute of my journey. So some of you, apart from probably doing the math, trying to figure out how old I am, I'm still young, by the way. You probably are wondering, 13 years, why did you wait 13 years before you went into Chartership? You know, why did you take that long? And I think the first thing I would say, and my defensive, you know, communications response would be actually CPD and the Charter and the opportunity to become chartered only came in like 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. So it wasn't 13 years. But the honest part of me would just say really it was the fear of failure. I had the whole idea of being chartered and the need to be chartered smiling at me off my vision board for 2 solid years. I would see the word chartered and I'll just tick other boxes and I'll look at it again. I was like, is it too late for me to tear that down my vision board? But I guess it's too late because it's there. And because of the opportunity that we had, and we thank CIPR, Mandy, and the team that's there now for really opening up the opportunity of having the online assessment, because that, you know, sort of like cut off some of the excuses I had, which was, you know, paying for a ticket, going and getting a hotel, getting time off work. But then now work is at home, no hotels, no tickets, you know, Darvini, just do it. And, you know, I finally did do it. And I really don't regret doing it at all. I had to build the courage to, I had to be committed, and I had to set myself to be to a date, and being committed meant that I had to pay, because real commitment means when money is coming out, right? And so when I paid, I knew it was locked in. This was a matter of pounds and naira and dollars and cents. And so, you know, I have to show up. Whatever happens, I'm going to show up so that, you know, this money makes sense. So I read the book, the Get Chartered Handbook, 2 versions of it, and then also watched the webinars, did the homework, and, you know, here I am today. One of the few that Andras, you know, has so proudly mentioned, a part of Africa. And I understand I'm actually the only one based in Nigeria that is chartered, but a very little part of the little percentage that is the African part, which I'm really proud of and thankful to everyone that has brought me this far. So just to recap, you know, just to say that it's definitely something we should all do as professionals, irrespective of where we come from. And I promised you 10 C's, which I hope is going to wrap this up very nicely and help you really understand the journey. And the first is the 10 C's for me getting chartered. The first was recognize your comfort zone. And you'll see that's the C. Just look out for the C. I don't have the slides, so look out for the C's in what I'm saying. So the first is recognize your comfort zone. The second is be open and embrace change. The third is stay curious. We are in a dynamic world. You have to stay curious so that you're up to date and up to par with all the changes, not only in our industry, but in the world, to stay relevant. Number 4 is you have to find courage within yourself, overcome your fears. Number 5 is to be confident in your own expertise, in your own ability, and the value that you bring into the conversations, irrespective of your background. Number 6 is connect. One of the main things and ways for you to connect and work is by meeting people, and that is exactly what the Chartered Institute of Public Relations does. It allows us to connect not locally but internationally and globally, and really, you know, feed off of those networks to make a greater impact, which I hope is why we're all PR professionals. Number 7 is to enroll and commit with money to the CPD, because you're going to need to be paying your membership fees. And then, of course, for it to have value in you, you have to enroll and become a part of the cycle for the continuous professional development, which can help you in various themes across whatever jobs or industries you support or work for. And then number 8 is get chartered, which is really important because I think that's the highest. And then number 9 is to obtain credibility, which I spoke of initially as being an African in the PR space, and the credibility of being chartered, bringing that into the boardroom and reaping from the benefits of that individually and for the industry as well. And finally, number 10, you become conspicuous. You become a visible PR practitioner. I want to thank Graham and Samantha, you know, who invited me to this platform, an opportunity which I probably wouldn't have gotten if I didn't, you know, take the courage and go out there and actually get chartered. And I'm really proud to do so, and really happy to be able to share my journey. And I hope that this would inspire everyone listening to do the same. Thanks.
Thanks, Darvini. Thanks so much. And so, Graham, are you going to continue with this?
Yes, I can do. Yeah. So, so the Chartered Assessment itself, it's a one-day format. And the assessment is on 3 key areas, which are ethics, strategy, and leadership. And as you can see there, those are broken down further into sub-component parts. You'll see a little photograph on the screen there of one of our recent virtual chartered assessment days. And we found that that format works really well. You know, it's available wherever you are, but the conversations that need to be held to assess you can still be held really effectively virtually. So could we have the next slide, please? Yeah, so effectively the benefits of being chartered are, it means you can stand toe to toe with chartered professionals working in other sectors. So if you're working in your companies with chartered accountants or chartered engineers or others, then you are literally on the same level as them. The recognition is the same. But more importantly than that, it's going to improve the boardroom perception of PR and communications. It is a strategic management function, and more that's being recognised through more of our members becoming chartered. So you're doing something for yourself, but you're also doing something for the profession by being chartered. And the next slide. So member groups and networking. I don't know, Samantha, do you want to give us some insights in this area?
Yes, thank you very much, Graham, and thank you to everyone this evening for joining us. So my name is Samantha Siwusaran. I'm based in Mauritius. I have a background in government and corporate communications, and I run a Pan-African news portal by the name of platformafrica.com, which aims to showcase what Africa can do for the world. And we're also a media partner of Africa Communications Week. And so in terms of CIPR, I'm actually a member of the CIPR International Committee along with Andras, and I'm also the founder of the CIPR network in Mauritius. So I'm really working with CIPR to try and build our Pan-African network, because I think it can bring tremendous value, just as Darbuni has been saying a few minutes ago. The reason why I've chosen this slide, which shows a number of ladies and one holding a microphone, is that this is our first real success story in Mauritius. That we had our launch event last year. The lady shown in the picture with the microphone is Marie Noel, who may be with us this evening. I'm sure she'll pop up if she is, who became our first Mauritian PR professional who got chartered last week. And I know that there are a number of others recently, also Tarzima from Botswana, who may be with us. So I think that already, just in the last few weeks, we've done tremendously well in getting more chartered practitioners in Africa, which I think is absolutely wonderful. So congratulations to all of them. If we can move on to the next slide, please, Yola. So in terms of member groups, that CIPR does have a wide range of member groups on different topics. So if you do join either as a member or a global affiliate, which Graham will explain shortly, that you do have the chance to be part of CIPR International. You can contribute, for example, to its blog. You can get in touch with other international members. But if you want to do other things as well, if you have specific sectoral interests, such as myself, I have a background on the sort of corporate and financial side, so I'm also happy to follow that sector group. Overall, there are a wide range of different topic areas where you can also look for online and international networking opportunities in, across the globe, really. If we can move on to the next slide. So this is networking. So myself, I thought it would be a good idea to set up my own network in Mauritius, because I was very much convinced it would bring value to PR professionals in the country. So, so the first picture here shows myself at the top.
Totally related to Galbraith.
Hello. Oh, sorry, I'll just carry on. So, yes, so the first picture then shows our networking event where we had around 60 people who came last March. And so for anyone that would be interested in setting up their own events in the country, then I would be very happy to explain how that is done. I think I can see Marie Noel, so thanks for joining us. The second photo is one from the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub, where we also had an event which was taken place last year. So this was to plan the Africa FinTech Festival. So in Mauritius, we're very excited about FinTech. I have many FinTech interests. And I think what's exciting here, and when we look at upskilling as well, is that all of this upskilling and networking goes hand in hand, particularly in the areas of real innovation. So the way I see it is to say that, if we can take all PR professionals together in a particular country or in a particular sector, like take everyone with us, and then we'll be able to acquire the skills and the knowledge that we need to go forwards. I think if we can all work out, how am I going to tell my part of the African story? Well, my part would be, here we are in Mauritius, we're very active in fintech, we're trying to play a leading role in financial services and so on. So I think with the upskilling of all of the different tools and knowledge that we can learn from CIPR, that this really gives us an opportunity to come together. And if we can really upskill PR professionals across the continent, from all different parts and across sectors, this is how we're going to tell the story of Africa as a dynamic and thriving and innovative continent that we really know it is. So I think that's why I'm excited about the opportunities to do more in Africa. I think there's a tremendous amount to do, and there are so many talented professionals out there that if we can all come together in CIPR, then I think we have an amazing future ahead of us. So we can carry on to the next slide. So now coming on to thought leadership, yes, we'll just move on here. And this was briefly mentioned by Enyoda at the beginning, that in the area of AI and PR and ethics, that CPI has already been taken a lead here. But I think overall that thought leadership is a very important dimension of CIPR, because when we do have a huge number of very senior professionals, and I know there are many with us this evening, so it's really looking at that strategic area, that it's not just a matter of, like, say, just doing digital, even if that's important, but we need to see, like, where is the industry going? What are the issues that we need to manage, such as ethics in AI? How does that work? Well, we've now got our first guides to look into it. We've also had campaigns such as PR Pays, talking to different people from different parts of the sector. We had an interesting interview with someone from Heathrow Airport in the UK. We also have webinars on very high level issues. One of them is 5 things your board wants from PR, to say, if you're really at that chartered level, what is it that the board is interested in? Because you're going to be there with the chartered accountants and other chartered professionals, and you have the same value that they do. So really CIPR wants to be and to remain in this very strategic sphere of looking forward in the thought leadership way. So we can move on to the next slide, Enyola. So Influence Magazine Online, I think it was mentioned at the start by Andras, but this is an excellent publication. It's won a number of awards, and even when it comes to the CPD, there are certain articles on things like how to create your personal brands, where you can actually read the article online and you can collect the CPD points for that. So it would actually count towards your own sort of, your CPD development and eventually your own charter status. So again, I think that's a wonderful development that now we have this magazine online, because it covers all types of fascinating topics from people around the world. So again, it's definitely well worth a read. Okay, so if we move on, I think I'll now hand back over to Graham as our manager of the CIPR membership to explain just a little bit about how the membership works. Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Samantha, for that. Yeah, so if this afternoon's session has got you thinking about your professional development and your professional journey, and you're not already a member, then you really should be thinking about joining the CIPR. And we've got a joining offer in a moment, which I'll share with you. But first of all, membership of the CIPR really is about demonstrating accountability to a third-party organisation for your professionalism and your commitment to ethical practice. So as part of joining the CIPR, you have to sign our code of conduct, which says just that you'll behave in a professional and ethical manner at all times. And then you get a listing on our, what we call the PR register, which is a publicly searchable list of all our members. And that means that there's a lot of professional reassurance given to the people that you're working with, that if something were to go wrong, there's a complaints process in place. And as I say, you're accountable to a chartered body for what you do. And on to the next slide. Thank you. And these are just some of the benefits of membership for CIPR. So everyone has to sign the code of conduct, which gives you a listing on the PR register. Every grade of membership, with the exception of our student grade, which is for people studying on a qualification lasting at least 12 months and is available at a highly discounted rate, all of those grades get access to CIPR CPD, which is all of those learning resources we were talking about, together with the way of logging, tracking and recording your development in a structured manner. Training discounts, you get access as a full member to unlimited CIPR groups. So we were talking about all of those sector specific, geographically based groups, CIPR International. As a full member, you get access to all of them. We have a global affiliate grade, which is designed for people based outside of the UK, which gives access only to CIPR International Group, which could be very relevant. And at certain grades, you also get to use our member logos and designatory letters after your name, which is, again, nice for recognition purposes. And then again, as Darbuni was alluding to, 2 years of consecutive CPD and you're awarded accredited PR practitioner status, which is one of the 2 professional accreditations that we provide, the other of which is chartered status. And as a democratic organisation, you can vote in CIPR elections as a full member and get involved in board, councils and committees. Every group has a committee, so each group is led by members for members. And the next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have a joining offer, which is valid for a few more weeks. So you have until the 15th of October to take advantage of this. You can join online on our website, cipr.co.uk, at affiliate, associate, member grade. Usually there's a £55 admission fee, but if you use this discount code, which is ACW20, we'll waive that as long as you join by the 15th of October. And you can see the fees on there outlined for the various grades. We've also got a second offer, which is if you want to join at global affiliate grade, that's normally £87 for the year, and there's never a joining fee at that grade. We can reduce that to £60 for the year until the 15th of October. So again, just use that same discount code, ACW20, join online. If you're taking advantage of the second offer, you will need to select pay by invoice because we're manually overriding the price that the system would normally charge you. So you have to select pay by invoice. We'll reduce the fees and then you can log in and pay online as normal. Okay, and that's the offer. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a flavour and got you thinking about membership and CPD. Contact me if you've got any questions after this. grahamk@cipr.co.uk or find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Graham. And now over to Annie for the Q&A session. Looks like we lost Annie. So now we're going to just launch into Q&A. If you've got some questions, you can raise your hands or put them in the chat box. To any of the speakers, particularly Darbuni. Okay, so while we're waiting for everybody to get, okay, so we've got some questions from Agatha. Graham, can non-members attend your webinars?
That's a good question. Thank you for that. Generally, the answer is no. Most of our content is for members only. Sometimes, occasionally, if there's a particular reason, we may make a webinar available to the public at large, if there's a benefit to doing so. So I guess the short answer is it depends on the webinar, but generally speaking, they're all member only.
Can I just add as well, as well as the corporate webinars done by the Central HQ, there are sometimes webinars and panel discussions organised by the groups that people might find useful. So I work in governmental public relations, and we do discussions and chats, and they're fairly low cost to join. They're slightly different, you know, they're much more informal, and I'm sure Andras does the same for the CIPR International Group.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add that As far as I remember, all of our webinars, which we produce, the CIPR International groups, are available for everyone for free to visit. So those are not part of the CIPR age-guided webinar courses or like video courses, but they're more like networking events and some sort of skills guides. If you check on our website, we have a Doing PR webinar series on specific countries, all available are for free. We have a Vimeo channel as well, vimeo.com/CIPR International, and you have a list of around 15, 20 webinars which are all free. And also, if you're interested in getting in touch with more of our group, we will have our AGM in the 22nd of October, and that's a webinar with a panel discussion as well on reputation issues, and that is going to be free as well for everyone to attend.
Okay, great, thank you. I think next we've got a question from Adedoyin Jaisimi about what's the difference between the different membership levels, associate, affiliate. I think this is for Graham.
Yeah, so there are there's actually 7 different membership grades. Essentially, it's about the level that you're operating at within your organization or in your career. So affiliate grade is for people who are not necessarily working in a PR or a comms related role, but have an interest in the industry. Associate grade is for people who are working in a PR or comms related role, but have less than 2 years experience. And full member or MCIPR grade is for those who are working in a PR or comms related role and have at least 2 years experience in the field. So it's really a reflection of your experience, and there are different pricing levels to reflect that.
Thanks for that, Graham. So if you've got any more questions, please put them in the chat box and we can continue to just, we'll be able to answer them.
There's someone raising her hand. You have to look at Liz raising her hand.
So Lokma, did you have a question? Oh, she's on mute. Okay, I have a question for Darbuni. In your experience, what was the most, I would say, most challenging part of the Chartership assessment, of the online assessment?
I think it was just that it was a day long. Even though CIPR gives you all the tools and you have all the webinars and there are lots of resources to support you. Just as you go into that space, you're not quite sure the angles the questions will come from, and you're going to be sitting down, for a whole day, and you don't know anybody else in the group. I mean, it's very unlikely that the other people that are put together with you. So you're really like in a new zone. For me, I didn't know anybody on the panel. I didn't know anyone in my group. So it was really new and fresh and a bit scary, really, to start with. But I think going into it, in the second stage, you started getting familiar with your group. We formed a little cohort, in my group later on, and then, and of course, in terms of the conversation as well, I think everyone participating has a role in making it either a good or a terrible experience. And I was really grateful that all of the people in my group, who had, fantastic stories and different backgrounds and really supported everybody else in the conversation that we had. So I think it's just that it's in itself, the unknown, stepping into the unknown is the scary part, but the known part was fine, getting ready and all of that. And I think the other thing I would add really is it's really about a conversation. I think for all of us that have taken part in it, it's about your personal experiences and a conversation. And so if you haven't actually had hands-on experiences in the areas of ethics and strategy, which usually comes as a leader in your organization or developing through your career, it'll be very difficult to participate effectively in that. And so bringing on that experience, I think, far outweighs, the theoretic part of the preparation there as well.
Great, thanks.
Can I add just two more thoughts on this? Because I did my chartership a month ago in late August.
Okay.
So I have a recently chartered as well. Two things. One is that the day itself, the assessment day itself, is not a test. It's 3 conversations or 4 conversations throughout the day. So even though I was as well scared in the beginning, but it was basically not a question where you have to answer and there are good or bad answers. It's basically just sharing your experience and be participating in a conversation, and that's a very important part of it. So it's you don't have to be scared because of this, and that's one thing. And the second one is, I think, at least to me, the most challenging part was the preparation itself. So it was not the day itself, but how you prepare, and it was really helpful going through the webinars and going through the handbook which CIPR provided. They're excellent materials, and they help you, and also they give you some questions to prepare, and they did through the 2, 3, 4 weeks of preparation. You went through your whole career, and you ask yourself your own questions and your own challenges and experiences. So it was basically a learning process for everyone who just went into the chartership assessment.
And can I add, as someone who only did it, I did my chartership a couple of years ago now. But, you know, I think for all of us, it's a learning experience. And as Andras says, you know, you learn so much through the preparation. You learn a lot from the other people on the charter day you're with, and you make some really good connections. And it is a bit scary, but it is remembering that you have that experience, you have your skills, and it's about just demonstrating through the conversation how you would approach things. And if you do that with confidence, that comes across.
Thanks so much, Mandy. Thank you, Andras Darbuni, for sharing these experiences. Sounds really, really, I would say, very, very interesting, and looking forward to, to taking up this challenge. I think we've got one question from Tolulokwe for Graham about membership in the chat box.
Yeah, so the question is, does this mean that once the relevant fees are paid, one becomes part of the CIPR? That's a really good question, because there's actually 2 parts to joining the CIPR. The first is making your payment, but secondly, and probably more importantly, is you need to sign our code of conduct. And the good thing is you can do that digitally online. It's not something you have to physically sign, and it's part of the online joining process as well. So you can do that. So you need to make an application on the website, and as part of that, you'll sign our code of conduct. And then the second requirement is payment. So once those 2 have been met, then absolutely you'll remember.
Great, thanks. I've just seen Kerry's response as well, that once you sign the code of conduct, you are firmly part of our CIPR family. Great, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any last questions, you can quickly put them in the chat box, but really this
one last question.
Annie has a question.
I know we need to wrap up, but I think that would be a good idea for everyone. I mean, all the speakers we've heard, to summarize maybe in 1 or 2 lines, you know, the most convincing argument for anyone, any communication or PR professional to join the CIPR. And especially given that we're in Africa, you know, we're talking to Africa-focused communication professionals, and some of us actually are francophone or lusophone, or not anglophone at all. How would you convince people who actually speak English and the whole training program to join the CIPR? How would you go about it? What would be your most compelling, convincing argument? Who wants to jump on that one?
Yeah, I'll kick us off, shall I? I think it's a bit like, if you think about if you had a medical problem, you wouldn't trust somebody who wasn't a qualified doctor to set your leg in plaster or do an operation or take your appendix out. You'd be looking for somebody who had the right level of expertise, skill, ability, and who is backed up by a professional organisation if something goes wrong. And it's the same for communications, really. You need to be able to give that professional reassurance so that whoever's employing you or working with you can have confidence in your abilities.
Who's next? Mandy, Samantha, Samantha. Okay.
Thank you, Annie. Well, I think that this has been a time of the last few months with COVID. It's been a time of tremendous change in so many ways. I mean, I think we've seen the drive towards digital, that many of us, including myself, now need to learn much more to get grips with digital in a real, in a real concrete fashion. I think that's the sort of thing where we need to reinvent ourselves in some way. But I think also in terms of the African narrative, I mean, for me, what COVID has shown in many countries in the West, we've seen poor leadership, we've seen very poor communication, and that has even cost lives in many countries. Whereas in Africa, I mean, in Mauritius, we had only 10 deaths. I was talking to someone in Senegal recently, they've also been doing pretty well. I mean, I think that the tide has turned in some respects. There are very good case studies in Africa of where things have been done very well, and good communication has played an excellent role in that. So I think that, in times of crisis, that communication is absolutely key. And I think now it's going to be about reshaping narratives and, being part of the new conversation. And I think that upskilling ourselves, having those right tools in our toolkits has never been more important. And I think that Africa has everything to gain, and the PR professionals within it.
Thank you, Samantha. Andras, Mandy, Dabuni. Oh,
Mandy.
Andras, okay.
Yeah, Mandy, raise your hand.
Hello. I was going to say, I think, COVID has been incredibly challenging for everyone, but for PR professionals, it's given us an opportunity to really show the value that we can deliver for our organizations, whether that be internal communications, whether it's protecting our brand and reputation, or in the sphere I work in, communicating governmental messages. And I think it's given us that opportunity to really talk to senior management and show that we are fellow professionals with all our other co-professionals like lawyers and accountants. And I think it's given us that real opportunity. I have to say, I've been so impressed with the communications in Africa, which has in many ways been superior to us in the UK around some certain issues. So I think, we can all learn from each other. And I think being in a chartered institute together gives us that opportunity to learn and share experience in a safe professional space.
Also, my comment would be that I quite like the idea that the assessment itself and the preparation is very high standard with the CIPR. And since we try to declare public relations as a very strategic role within the business, and the assessment and the whole preparation is focusing on the three main areas of the ethics and the strategy and the leadership. And some people fail during the exam, so not everyone can make it. So that means that the CIPR recognizes of your experience, of your practice on those three areas, which means that everyone who tries to hire someone with a chartered assessment, with the chartered recognition or the chartership recognition, that means that they have the experience and they prove that experience on all those three very strategic areas. So those who are chartered can be put anywhere in the world and doing their consultancy on the highest standards, which CIPR just recognizes. And I think that's an important part of this whole chartership issue.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Andreas, and that's really reaching the highest standard of our profession. And as for me as an individual, I always try to achieve that highest standard, and the highest standard always gives you an opportunity to test yourself and to improve yourself. And overarching in terms of who we are as PR professionals is really ensuring that the conversations we have about relationships with people and industry and the community is positive. And going through CIPR and the processes of CIPR gives you access to those resources. But for me, most importantly, putting together like minds that are working under a code of conduct. So irrespective of our background, of our moral codes, how we were brought up, what we believe is right or wrong, I think it's very important for every profession to have an aligned code of conduct in which, irrespective of where you are, irrespective of where you're operating as a PR professional, you are signed on to that code. And so you have like minds and you're going to have the same positive outcomes, despite the fact that you probably have different goals and objectives and purposes across board. So just having that center is like an anchor, I think, that is very important for every profession. And I'm glad that CIPR has that. And of course, as professionals, if we honor that, I mean, there's no bound to how far we can go and contribute to the conversation globally.
Thank you. There were all, very different answers to the same question, but all very compelling reasons to join the CIPR. And I'm very glad as ACW to have been able to join forces for this afternoon and to provide a big picture of how we can upskill, and especially with the time that's left for 2020. I'm sure everybody has, different take-home messages. At least for me, I believe we still have, there's still, the learning curve is still pretty much out there for many communication professionals, including obviously myself. And I'll think about it. I'll definitely think about joining CIPR before next month. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. This was really, 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 really interesting. It's been a really great learning experience. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And congratulations, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you. I love your journey. I love your sharing, really.